welcome to A World Confined, our show about the global repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic. Millions infected, billions more under lockdown. How are different countries coping, and when can the global economy begin to get on its feet again? Today we're at La Défense. This place is normally the beating heart of the French economy, but like financial hubs around the world, right now it is eerily silent. In this programme, we'll take you around the world to China, Ethiopia, Tunisia and Brazil. But we start in New Delhi, India. There, Narendra Modi's government has extended the state of emergency, meaning millions of people still cannot work. And for those who normally live paycheck to paycheck, the situation is increasingly desperate. Add to that another challenge. Those who have life-threatening conditions like cancer are being turned away from some hospitals in the capital, as our reporter Mandakini Galot has been finding out.
We're outside the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, the country's most prestigious public hospital, where hundreds of people are living in makeshift shelters of this kind, waiting for the hospital to reopen its doors for patients with non-COVID ailments.
कैंसर का इलाज कराने के लिए आए। कोरोना की वजह से ये जो है इलाज बंद हो गया। इलाज बंद हो गया तो कम से कम सुझाव तो दें या हमारी दवाइयों का इंतजाम तो करें।
With the lockdown in place, they can't go back home nor get the medical care they traveled for. So, they are stuck living in these unhygienic conditions, 20 or more people in each tent, with temperatures already soaring above 30 degrees.
हम 600 किलोमीटर दूर से आए, ऑपरेशन भी होगा, अच्छी तरह ऑपरेशन होगा। घर जाना चाहते तो जा भी नहीं सकते, कैसे जाएंगे, मतलब बंद रहेगा तो।
Elsewhere in the capital, food distribution points have sprung up all across the city. Each year, 45 million migrants come to Indian cities in search of jobs. A large majority of them have lost those jobs now and no longer have the resources to feed themselves.
दूरी बना करके रखिए।
बिहार के रहने वाला हूँ, मिस्त्री के काम करते हैं। एक में काम बंद हो गया तो दिक्कत हो गया। अब तो इसी तरह लाइन में लग कर खाना खा रहे हैं, बच्चा पाल रहे हैं, भूख मार रहे हैं।
The Indian government has announced a food-based relief package of over 20 billion euros. The goal is to get free food to nearly 800 million vulnerable Indians. But economists fear that many millions will be left out of this safety net.
It's not just in India where people are struggling to feed themselves under lockdown. This is, of course, now tragically a global problem. Throughout the world, many are faced with a stark choice. Break the law and continue to work, risking your health, or stay at home and rely on increasingly limited or perhaps even non-existent state subsidies. That's a debate playing out in households across Tunisia, as our reporter Lilia Blaze has been finding out.
For days, Tunisians have been coming to seek government assistance during the lockdown. 60 euros worth of aid. Many are in a precarious situation. They don't have bank accounts, so they have to go out to collect their cash. In this post office, civil society groups are volunteering to maintain social distancing.
مع السيستم هذا نتاع نسندوا ارقام للعباد باش يبعدوا على بعضهم وباش نجموا يطمئنوا على بلايصهم ويقعدوا يتبعوا في العمليه اللي تسكر البوست. لو نبعدوا من الفضاء هذا الاداره هذه ممكن تسكر ما تنجمش تستقبل الناس.
In local government offices, those who aren't already registered for social assistance have to submit a form. In just a few days, the municipal offices in Sidi Hassin, a working-class neighborhood in Tunis, received close to 25,000 requests for aid.
طوروا باش يعملوا الكلاسمون لو تري نتاع الملفات هذيا باش نعملوا احصاء اولي للملفات اللي تستحق الاعانه وهذوما يمشيوا يدورهم للجنه الجهويه الموجوده في وزاره الشؤون الاجتماعيه.
While waiting for help, this district is feeling the emergency on every street corner.
عندوش لا زيت لا سميد لا حتى شيء ملي دخل الحجر الصحي واحنا قاعدين لا خدمه لا ردمه.
Others who had been isolating at home, like this street vendor, have had to go back to work to make money.
فما واحد عنده راني فلوس ومزرزي راني وخارج راني باش يدور راني في المرض وفي كذا يلزق على المرض قال لي ما مر.
Whenever the police arrive to disperse people, everyone reluctantly picks up their goods, like in this fruit and vegetable market. It's a common scene in this neighborhood. Surviving lockdown is proving even more difficult for those who have no other choice than to work.
No country is immune to the coronavirus. COVID-19 has now touched nearly every state, big and small alike. But some countries have been less badly affected. Take Ethiopia, for example. It's recorded a little over 100 cases, but nonetheless, its impact has been devastating. A state of emergency is in place, national elections have been postponed, and normal life has all but ground to a halt. As our reporter in Addis Ababa, Maria Girth Nicolescu, reports.
These residents of Addis Ababa are traveling to their families outside of the capital for Orthodox Easter. With the state of emergency, buses have to stay half empty, so prices have doubled. Despite long waiting lines and the risk of contracting COVID-19, they are determined to leave the city. Social distancing is impossible to implement. Some travelers changed their minds to avoid taking any risks. In other parts of the city, life goes on at a slow pace. Cafes are still running, but some shops have closed. For many, the pandemic justifies the state of emergency, but this member of the opposition party says he's worried about the election delay. The current government will have no constitutional legitimacy once the emergency measure is lifted.
Opposition and the government has come to agreement to form a kind of national transitional government until proper time is set for the election. We worry that the government may use this state of emergency to limit the movement of the opposition forces.
But according to this analyst, the election delay could prove positive and even calm political tensions across the country.
That gives the parties more time. It gives the electoral board more time to prepare. It gives the political actors opportunity to negotiate over issues like what are the conditions for a fair election and how to achieve them.
It's impossible to know whether Abiy Ahmed's government will manage to avoid a political crisis after the COVID-19 pandemic. But for now, all parties seem to agree that efforts to contain the virus remain a top priority.
During the pandemic, most governments have adopted roughly the same strategy, closing schools and businesses, drastic measures that are shrinking national economies but are necessary to save lives. That, at least, is the message of most world leaders, but not of Jair Bolsonaro from Brazil. He's dismissed the coronavirus as little more than a cold and says Brazil's economy needs to get going again as soon as possible. And now his words have been picked up by protesters who are demanding a return to normal life.
Como ex-militar que sou também, eu sou favorável a entrar lá e exterminar aqueles vermes do Congresso, inclusive o STF. Chegar lá, é por mim, eu pendurava eles aqui em praça pública. Seria uma ditadura, seria uma coisa, mas temporariamente.
O governador do Rio está fazendo o povo ficar em casa e não está indo trabalhar. Por quê? Todos querem trabalhar. Se nós estamos aqui, podemos trabalhar. Deixa só as pessoas vulneráveis, as pessoas de idade em casa. Agora o povo quer trabalhar, senão vai morrer de fome.
Let's end where this all began, in China. The lockdown there is slowly easing, but in order for people to leave their homes, they have to prove they're healthy. And for that, they need an app. How well does it work? And is the Chinese state using the app to spy on its population? Our teams in Beijing and Shanghai have the story.
In Shanghai, life is going back to normal. But caution remains high and new tools are being used to avoid a second wave of infections. QR codes have now become the passports that allow Chinese people to move around. To get into a shop, one must show a green health code proving good health. This is obtained by scanning a mosaic.
就这个健康码是必须要打出来的，因为它市场管理要来查的。 你必须要有这个东西。
The Green Health Code depends on a number of different factors, including travel history in the last 14 days. For the customers, the system is reassuring.
我觉得这个比较安全，让每个顾客能够感觉到整个城市的一个保障，然后让那些店里的员工也感觉到上海这个城市是很安全的一个城市。
But for those who obtain a red code and are in good health, no explanation is given. This is the case for this man, who had no one to appeal to when he just finished quarantine after a trip to a different province.
因为我们这边写字楼就是需要登记嘛，还需要每天的一个测温，第一次需要出示这个随身码，它需要判断你是否正常健康，所以就是我当时是红色，就没有办法，不太合理吧，但是也是一种防疫的一种手段吧。
The precautionary measures are reinforcing the Chinese state's surveillance. After analyzing the code of one of these apps, this journalist found that once registered, the user's data was handed over to the police.
There's nothing on the app to tell you that the police are in any way involved. It says that this is a government service, but then it doesn't sort of specify beyond that, so it's pretty surprising to then see this beacon that's immediately going to police.
Has the pandemic become an opportunity for China to boost surveillance of its citizens? According to the authorities, these are just exceptional measures.
That's it for this week's episode. Thank you for watching. I hope we'll see you next time. And until then, let's leave you with these images of a world confined.